What was the single most lethal weapon in the British arsenal during the Second World War? From the desperate, outdated rifles carried during the retreat at Dunkirk to the suppressed, specialised weapons of the elite Commandos, we are ranking every major British infantry weapon of World War II. Stick around until the end to see the legendary firearm. Let's dive into the lower tier, featuring the desperate and obsolete weapons that proved Britain was completely unprepared for modern mechanised warfare in 1939. Boys Anti-Tank Rifle. To begin, we have the Boys Anti-Tank Rifle. This was a massive 36-pound bolt-action rifle firing a 55 caliber tungsten core round. By 1941, German tank armour had unfortunately become far too thick for this heavy projectile to penetrate. It was notoriously heavy and incredibly cumbersome for standard infantry to carry across the battlefield. Furthermore, it possessed a recoil so violent that it frequently injured the men attempting to fire it. Ultimately, it was an outdated concept that was quickly rendered obsolete by shaped charges. Lewis Machine Gun. Next is the Lewis Machine Gun. This is the iconic top-hand drum-fed light machine gun originally famous from the trenches of World War I. Weighing in at 28 pounds, it was simply too heavy for the rapid infantry assaults demanded by World War II. It was also highly susceptible to jamming whenever the intricate mechanism was exposed to thick mud. Consequently, it was quickly relegated to anti-aircraft duties and issued to the desperate Home Guard. It was a legendary weapon, but its frontline days were completely over. Moving on to the Pattern 1914 Enfield. This was a heavy, 5-round bolt-action rifle, originally designed before the First World War and chambered in 303 British. While it was highly accurate, it lacked the 10-round capacity of the more famous Lee-Enfield models. It also lacked the buttery smooth bolt action that British troops desperately relied upon for rapid fire. Because of these limitations, it was considered a desperate substitute weapon. Most of these rifles were issued primarily to the Home Guard to free up better equipment for the frontline troops. Continuing our list, we look at the Enfield No. 2 Mk I Webley Revolvers. These were the standard issue top-break revolvers chambered in the relatively weak 38-200 cartridge. The British literally removed the hammer spur on the tanker variant of the Enfield to prevent it from catching on vehicle interiors and uniforms. This drastic modification forced the weapon to be fired in double action only. As a direct result, this created a horribly heavy trigger pull and terrible overall accuracy. They were reliable sidearms, but they completely lacked modern combat-stopping power. Wrapping up the lower tier is the Lanchester Submachine Gun. This weapon was a direct, heavily machined copy of the German MP-28 submachine gun. It was beautifully crafted with a solid brass magazine, and a traditional wooden stock. However, this premium construction meant it was incredibly heavy and far too expensive for wartime mass production. It was quickly abandoned by the standard army infantry units. Instead, it was handed over to the Royal Navy, where it served reliably for shipboard defense. Now we enter the mid-tier, featuring the highly specialized and niche equipment. These weapons showcased brilliant engineering, but were built for very specific combat scenarios rather than general infantry firefights. Welrod Pistol. First in this tier is the Welrod Pistol. This highly specialized firearm was a bolt-action 9mm pistol fitted with a massive integral suppressor. It was considered absolute perfection for the operatives of the Special Operations Executive. The weapon was virtually silent, making it the ultimate assassin's tool for covert operations deep behind enemy lines. However, its manual bolt-action mechanism made it completely useless in an open, fast-paced frontline firefight. It was a tool of absolute stealth, not battlefield dominance. Next up is the Lisle Commando Carbine. This fascinating weapon utilized a modified Lee-Enfield action chambered in 45 ACP, fitted with a massive barrel-length suppressor. It holds the legendary title of being the quietest firearm of the entire war. British commandos used it to shoot German sentries in the dead of night with terrifying efficiency. The suppression was so effective that it could eliminate targets without alerting enemy units located just 100 yards away. It was a masterpiece of specialized, covered engineering. Fairbairn-Sykes Fighting Knife. Moving forward, we have the Fairbairn-Sykes Fighting Knife. This iconic blade was a double-edged stiletto dagger featuring a distinctive foil grip. It was developed directly from the lethal close-quarters street fighting concepts utilized by the Shanghai Municipal Police. It quickly became the legendary, undeniable symbol of the elite British Commandos and the SAS. The blade was specifically designed to penetrate thick-wall greatcoats and strike vital organs with pinpoint accuracy. It remains one of the most famous combat knives in global military history. Continuing with specialized gear, we examine the SBML 2-inch mortar. This was a highly portable infantry support weapon weighing exactly 4.1 kilograms. Unlike heavier traditional mortars, it did not require a massive steel baseplate or complex aiming sights. It functioned perfectly as the platoon commander's personal pocket artillery during rapid assaults. It was used constantly on the battlefield to lay down immediate, life-saving smoke screens for advancing infantry. This lightweight tool provided crucial tactical flexibility for British squads. Finishing the mid-tier is the PIAT. This was a unique spigot mortar that utilized a massive 200-pound internal spring to launch a shaped charge explosive. It was undeniably awkward, exceptionally heavy, and required immense physical strength just to cock the mechanism. However, unlike the American bazooka, it had absolutely no backblast upon firing. This meant British troops could fire it safely from inside small rooms during intense urban combat. Despite its crude appearance, it actually killed panzers and saved countless infantrymen. We now transition to the high tier, showcasing the frontline workhorses. This is the mass-produced, highly effective gear that actually won the war. Thompson Submachine Gun, kicking off the high tier, is the Thompson Submachine Gun. This is the famously heavy 45 ACP American icon that Britain utilized heavily in the early years. Before the cheaper Sten was ready for production, Britain bought these reliable weapons in massive numbers. The elite commandos absolutely loved the sheer stopping power of the heavy 45 round for brutal trench-clearing operations. Even though the weapon was incredibly heavy, its reliability in close-quarters combat was entirely unmatched. It provided vital automatic firepower when the British Army needed it most. Next is the Browning high-power pistol. This was a revolutionary 9mm semi-automatic pistol originally designed by the legendary John Browning. It was built by Inglis in Canada, specifically for the British Airborne Forces and the SAS. It featured a groundbreaking 13-round double-stack magazine that redefined sidearm capabilities. Because of this massive capacity, it was arguably the most advanced and highly effective combat handgun of the entire war. It gave elite paratroopers a massive advantage during close-quarters engagements behind enemy lines. Mills Bomb. Moving on to explosives, we look at the Mills Bomb. This was a heavy, cast-iron pineapple-style fragmentation grenade that served as a defensive powerhouse. Because it was so dense and fragmented so violently upon detonation, it was incredibly dangerous to use in the open. The lethal radius of the flying shrapnel was actually farther than the average soldier could throw it. This required troops to be securely behind hard cover before the weapon finally detonated. It was a terrifyingly lethal explosive that dominated trench warfare. Continuing our list, we have the Lee-Enfield No. 5 Mk I Jungle Carbine. This was a drastically shortened and lightened version of the standard Lee-Enfield rifle. It was uniquely fitted with a distinct flash hider and the rubber butt pad to manage the intense recoil. It was specifically engineered for the brutal close-quarters combat environments of the Pacific and Burma theaters. The weapon was notoriously loud and kicked like an absolute mule when fired. However, it offered unmatched mobility and rapid handling in the incredibly dense jungle brush. Concluding the high tier is the Sten Gun. This was a crude, mass-produced 9mm blowback submachine gun born out of absolute desperation. It cost practically nothing to make, allowing Britain to arm its massive military and resistance fighters quickly, while early variants were literal steel tubes that jammed if incorrectly held by the magazine. The design was eventually perfected. The late-war Mk I variant, issued to paratroopers with a wooden stock and pistol grip, became a highly effective weapon. It evolved into a lethal trench sweeper that defined British close-quarters combat. Finally, we enter the God tier, representing the ultimate British arsenal. This is the legendary trinity of British infantry firepower that dominated the battlefield. Beginning the top tier is the Vickers Medium Machine Gun. This was a massive, water-cooled, tripod-mounted heavy machine gun chambered in the standard 303 cartridge. It required a dedicated three-man crew and a constant supply of water to operate efficiently. Despite this logistical burden, it is arguably the greatest sustained fire weapon in military history. The Vickers could fire continuously for literally days on end without the barrel melting or failing. It provided an absolutely impenetrable wall of suppressive fire that devastated enemy infantry assaults. Next up is the legendary Lee-Enfield No. 1 Mk3 Star. This was the famous World War I workhorse that soldiered on through the early disasters of Dunkirk and North Africa. It featured an impressive 10-round magazine, which was double the capacity of the standard German Kar 98K. More importantly, the bolt-action mechanism was so incredibly smooth and short that it revolutionized infantry tactics. British riflemen could achieve the mad minute, laying down a volume of fire so rapid it was devastating. Germans frequently thought they were being engaged by actual machine guns due to this incredible firing speed. Taking the bronze medal is the Lee-Enfield No. 4 Mk I. This was the fully modernized, definitive British combat rifle of the Second World War. It took everything that was great about the previous Mk3 model and absolutely perfected it for modern combat. It featured a heavier barrel, which provided significantly better accuracy at long combat ranges. However, the real upgrade was the superior rear aperture peep sight mounted near the shooter's eye. This allowed for far faster target acquisition during the chaotic, fast-paced infantry engagements of the European theatre. Finally, claiming the number 1 spot is the Bren Light Machine Gun. We placed this at the absolute top because the entire British infantry doctrine revolved entirely around this single weapon. Originally a Czech design, the gas-operated top-loading Bren is widely considered the absolute best light machine gun of the war. When fired from its sturdy bipod, it was terrifyingly accurate at suppressing enemy positions. It featured a quick-change barrel and an incredibly reliable top-mounted 30-round magazine. Ultimately, every single rifleman in a British squad existed primarily to carry extra ammunition just to keep the Bren gun firing. And that completes our definitive ranking of the British infantry arsenal. It is absolutely staggering to witness this evolution of firepower, transforming from the desperate, outdated WWII leftovers of 1939 into the highly specialized, perfectly engineered tools that armed the Commandos and secured the Allied victory. But now I am turning the question over to you. If you had to drop into occupied Europe tomorrow, which of these 20 weapons are you taking with you? Are you relying on the silent precision of the Lisle or the raw, sustained fire of the Bren? Let me know your exact loadout in the comments down below and defend your choice. If you want to see how this British arsenal directly compares to the heavy weaponry of the Third Reich, click the video on your screen right now for our complete breakdown of German infantry weapons. Don't forget to leave a like, hit that subscribe button to join the ranks, and I will see you in the next deep dive.